Gather round. It's time for your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. Listen closely as your coaches discuss the culture, the economy, and the political scene, and how it affects your home and your real estate investments. Real Estate Chalk Talk is where you learn the science of buying and selling real estate and the art of living in your home. Your education begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, welcome to the show. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group. HittnerGroup.com, Hittner Group. That's all one word, HittnerGroup.com, 612-627-8000. That's 612-627-8000. Give us a ring-a-ling-a-ling, and we'd be happy to have a chat with you about your real estate needs. And that call, of course, with no cost and absolutely no obligation.
But you will sign a form saying there's an obligation.
You will sign a form eventually, pretty quick. That first call is with no cost because we can't have them sign over the phone. Can't figure out how to do that. As soon as you could Venmo. Venmo for the phone call. Right, Keith?
Just a little e-signing is all you need.
E-signing is what it is. Okay, we got some interesting activity in the real estate world. So,
what's new?
I did good prep this week, Keith.
Okay.
So Keller Williams had their
18 years later.
Yeah, 18 years later, finally did a week of prep. Keller Williams had their powwow down in Texas, like they always have, 5,000 people there. And I love listening to Gary Keller because he's one of the most forward-thinking people in our industry, and really has his hand on the, other than myself, of course, has his fingers on the pulse, so to speak.
Okay, Donald.
Yeah, and it'll be great. So he was talking about, there's a couple of things I just want to mention. One of them is a conversation about being anti-fragile. Anti-fragile. Know what that means?
Sure.
Not being fragile.
Not being fragile, but it's more than that, anti-fragile. So what that means is, when you lift weights, Keith, you're a weightlifting guy.
Okay.
So when you lift heavy weights, what happens to your muscles?
Tear.
They tear them, right? And when they come back, they're what? Stronger. That's anti-fragile. It's when you're put under stress, under pressure, you become stronger. That's being anti-fragile. So the encouragement was to the agents that are going to survive in this industry long term, they need to be anti-fragile so that when the pressures and the stressors of change come about, you get better at your job and you improve your performance. You don't just fall away. So this kind of reminded me of last week's conversation when we were talking about that there's 1.5 million agents that are quote-unquote realtors, and 1 million of them have not sold a house in a year and a half. Those people are not anti-fragile. They're going to fall away, and there's a huge number of agents that they expect that. Some people were thinking that there's going to be this fall away this year.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them had already paid their dues, and so they're not. Why would you? Just stick around, kind of see what happens. But now, as the next recycling period,
and that's an annual thing due in January, Keith?
Yeah. Well, some states it's in January. Ours happens to be in June, so our renewal date is in June.
So what did you find out what about Minnesota then?
Well, there was quite a fall away. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know that they've actually released the numbers yet, but we have had people on our team that have decided not to continue on with the business, and they found employment someplace else. I had on our health and wellness show, I had Amy Daniels on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was.
What did she talk about?
Well, her business. She had her business, but I asked her why she left, why she stopped doing real estate, and for her, it was she had small children, and it was just the demands on her life for kids, and real estate's a 7-day-a-week job.
Mm-hmm. A lot of nights, retail.
Nights,
you always say retail, right?
It is retail, nights and weekends. But it's not retail with scheduled hours that you can schedule, I'm going to be gone from this time to this time. It's just like the phone's going to ring, and if you don't go, you don't make any money. So you go.
But you managed to do that, Keith, with 5 kids and busy schedules, activities.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's
It
just a
sounds
matter
like-
of scheduling your time, and some people can manage it better than others, and others. For me, when Keith played hockey all the time, so and that was back before there was a lot of rink, so it was like weird times. I mean, he had 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock ice time. Remember that through mornings driving. I would just put it in my schedule, just like an appointment, and then you just schedule around it. That was the first thing that went in the schedule.
So there's a lot of things changing. And
A lot
so
of things changing.
So being anti-fragile is important.
Anti-fragile is
for
important.
longevity in the
job.
real estate business.
Get
What
back
do you
to-
think's going to happen long term?
So here, get down to Keller. So
with the
here,
quote changes that are happening.
So Gary Keller, according to Gary Keller, he says the real estate business is in a recession right now. We are in a recession. We're a segment of the economy. The rest of the economy seems to be doing fairly well, but our industry is in a recession. And by definition, a recession is when people spend less money. And they are definitely spending less money because sales are off.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah, there's no question. And so then there's the conversation about price stickiness. Because earlier in the year, we saw a lot of price reductions. And we talked about it on this show. The price reductions were mainly because people got over their skis in the first place.
Yep.
They priced it too high in the beginning, not realizing the market had shifted, and so now they have to come down to adjust to the current market conditions. Okay. Now there seems to be a resistance for that price reduction because people are, although there are fewer buyers and there are fewer people spending money, we also have this anomaly of less inventory. So you put those two together, so now you've got price resistance on one side because there are less demand.
Yeah.
But you've got shortage on the other side, which is buoyant for prices, and that creates some of this price stickiness. And we're experiencing ourselves because I look at homes that we have on the market, and I'm checking. We've got no activity on it. We have a lot of activity on them. And there's no offers coming in. But then you run the numbers on the house to see, like, wow, am I?
Yeah.
Am I
You're like, well,
high?
it's not
Yeah.
price.
Yeah, and it's not price.
Yeah.
It is not price. It is that they're
And
just.
how do you determine it's not price? Just for the listeners, you just look at comps. You're looking.
We
at
look,
area,
yeah, we
what
look
are you
at the
looking
comparable properties. We look at price per square foot. We look at what the properties are selling for in the given area. We're looking at the condition and the amenities of the property. All those things that relate to
Value.
and you look at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not dropping. I don't think we should lower the price because you could lower the price $50,000 and it isn't going to result in anything other than you getting $50,000 less.
Right.
There's
It's not going to change the activity.
It's
not
not
gonna change
changing the activity.
whether the house sells or not.
No.
Isn't there quite a bit of activity though right now in the marketplace? Or-
There is activity in the
I'm
marketplace. Same
seeing
thing
a
though.
lot.
It's in we've talked about ad nauseum. If you're an entry level property under $400,000 property, you're going to have a lot of activity. The house is going to sell. You may have multiple offers on that house, although the numbers of properties selling with multiple offers is dwindling, and the numbers of offers that are on that property are dwindling. So we are definitely seeing a softening, even in that price tier. I think, not as frenzied.
Right. Well,
as-
we're seeing a lot of
as it
offers
was.
get accepted with FHA financing, VA financing, bond loans.
Yeah.
How many first
Those are
generations-
things that you wouldn't have seen 2 years ago.
No, I think we would have been passed over for a conventional 20% down or cash deal, and they do the delayed finance
Right.
on it or something.
So that's an example of how the market softening
Yep.
has impacted you on the finance side.
Yep.
You're doing different kinds of loans
Right.
than you were.
But how are sales? I mean,
Sales-
'cause showing traffic is
Okay,
down.
so traffic, let's just look at this now. Our sales this week, 872. Last week it was 894. Coming down from a high of the year of 1,085. And we were running that 900, every
900 was that
900,
number. Yep.
900. And now last week we went below 900 for the first time to 894, and now it's 872. But the inventory has gone up 2% from last week. So now we
that
have
makes sense, right?
Yeah, less sales.
Yeah, less sales, so inventory will be up.
No. If we had less sales, inventory would stay the same. So we have more inventory coming on than are going off.
Right, because normally that would be sold off, and now it would just pass.
we're not just replacing the inventory. Our inventory is growing.
Adding to.
Yep.
We're adding to. So we've got 1,100 houses coming on the market and 800 of them being sold. So the inventory continues to grow and continues.
That's great, though.
To swell. Well, it depends on your point of view. Yeah.
Well, I want options for people, so it's not like, well, I'm just going to buy this one, and then they're frustrated, 6 months later because it's not really what they wanted, but it's all they could find.
Yeah, the opportunities are more for
Yeah.
buyers, and they're able to be a little bit more choosy right now with what's on the market. I think if you're looking in a general area, there's plenty to choose from, and that's a good position to be as a buyer. And if you're an FHA buyer, a VA buyer, you have more opportunities too. So
You bet.
things are looking good for buyers out there. So if
For
you're
sure.
interested in purchasing a home, give us a call, 612-627-8000. That number again is 612-627-8000. Or you can go to our website, hittnergroup.com, Hittner Group.com. That website again is hittnergroup.com. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. We'll be right back.
Hey, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group, hittnergroup.com, 612-627-8000. We got Ben in the studio with Inspector Homes. I was on 2 listing appointments this week. We listed one in Eagan, and in the conversation, we're talking about, the kind of the process going through, all that stuff. Now, these people are moving out of state. They're getting out of Minnesota, like 15,000 other families have this year. So they're getting out of Minnesota. And we talked about the importance of I want to insist that the buyer have an inspection. What a huge change from a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But I want the buyer, whoever that buyer is and whoever is representing them, I want them to have an inspection. I want them to have adequate time to look at the house. I want them to know exactly what they're getting, go through with their professional and see that property, because we're leaving. My people are going to be out of state. I don't want to hear about it, in 3 months of something that came up. You rely on your own inspector and your own personal observations. We'll disclose. We over-disclosed. We disclose. I actually learned that from my son because he's a disclose kind of a guy. And so, we write down everything. Not we change light bulbs in the bathroom, but pretty almost. Just get it out there so you saw it and look at it. What are you seeing with when you're doing inspections? I got 2 things I want to cover in our time together today. One of them is on some of these like lead paint, asbestos, some of those kinds of things, and then just your normal items that kind of pop up on every house that a seller should really prepare for because they're going to come up.
Sure. Some of the things that we want to look at is, especially the older homes, Minneapolis, St. Paul, especially the 1920s to 1950s built. A lot of those are going to have cast iron pipes, okay? And some of those things, again, they were used for drainage systems and were built to be able to handle the flowage from all of the city water and whatnot, the pressure. And in a lot of, actually, St. Paul has about 1,200 miles of this pipe underneath it, and Minneapolis has
Cast
about
iron pipe.
Yep, and Minneapolis has about 1,000 miles. Okay, and so it's built to last. There's no doubt about that, isn't it? Yeah,
Crazy.
It is. And so one of the things that they would obviously want to look at is checking their water pressure. Is the water pressure down? That could mean that the water pipes, coming in could have some issues with that.
What kind of issues are we talking about?
Well, for instance, galvanized piping was another, form of water pipe that was used up until the late 1990s.
Okay.
And that had a zinc coating inside it. And it was cadmium in the presence of lead, that would corrode that pipe. Corroding, or the adhesive would kind of come off of that, if you will, and would tighten that pipe up, restricting water flow. That would mean something is going on with your pipes, and so we'd want to look at that a little bit more in depth.
So it's getting clogged up like an artery or what?
Kinda, yep, exactly.
That probably would have been good to know that they tested that type of piping before they put it under the city.
Yeah.
Smart.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, they probably just didn't know what kind of testing
right?
would do.
Well, right. But who knew back then in the 1920s and 1950s? The cast iron, it was just something, it was so readily available.
All they had.
Exactly. And nowadays, what we're fixing that with is obviously like plastics, PVC, those types of things. Okay, and so
pull
And
up
we'll find
that those are
20
breaking
years
down.
from 20
Yeah.
years from now we'll find that all that
that
flex
plastic
tubing
kind of-
causing cancer. And,
Yeah,
things
exactly.
like that.
well, and segueing into asbestos. Now that you bring up cancer. Asbestos, when we see that in a house, we want to be very, very careful with that, okay? Because asbestos isn't necessarily dangerous as it is. It's the fibers when it breaks up and goes, and it's airborne. Those molecules are what get embedded into your lung tissue, and over time that will metastasize and could turn into cancer, okay?
So when you go into homes that are older, a lot of people don't really understand where asbestos could be hidden. It's obvious when you go into an older house in South Maine or whatever it is, still has the octopus furnace and it's wrapped in that's like obvious.
Yep.
But there's places that are less obvious.
Like the cloth wiring insulation, in old homes. Some of the ductwork, as you just mentioned, adhesives, square ceiling tiles. And again, unless we go in and we inspect every single ceiling tile, we would never know that, and we won't go in and inspect, but we will give that customer the heads up and saying, we might want to look at that. This floor tile could have asbestos in it, like the 9x9 floor tiles. Those typically were made with asbestos.
Even some of the wall material in older homes, the lath and plaster,
Yep,
has asbestos in
it does. The wall board, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, it does.
So when you go into a home of that age then, are you concerned as an inspector? I mean, how do you protect yourself as an inspector when you're going into these environments that obviously the house is built in 1942 or 45, and it's like, okay, there's probably asbestos in this house. Do you mask up or what do you do?
We leave that up to our inspectors.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a standardized, item, but obviously we're entering that property at our own risk, right? And so if the inspector feels that they need to wear an N95 mask, we absolutely have them available for them.
Okay, so now on the recommendation side then, you obviously disclose to your client, your customer, that this has got asbestos tiles and all that. What is the mitigation there if they choose to do mitigation?
Well, the mitigation is out of our hands. We have to recommend somebody that's licensed through the Minnesota Department of Health to come in and take care of that. And so we would contract that information out to another inspection company that we work with.
Okay, and so then they come in and they are all hazmated. And now, as I understand, the rules have kind of changed on that. We have a client that did asbestos mitigation, and he said the rules in Minnesota have changed about how residential properties are mitigated. They need to be, if they have a case that needs to be cleaned up, they treat it just like a commercial property. And they go in and they've got to mat tape off the house. They go into hazmat suits. They got to remove it. They got to HEPA filter it all out and clean it up, dispose of it correctly, because a homeowner will go in there and just kind of rip the tiles out. And
they will.
And
Well,
throw
and
it in the
not know.
dumpster.
Exactly.
Throw it in the dumpster.
Yep,
And
exactly.
off it goes into the landfill.
Well,
But even knowing too, because they look at a cost of it like that, and then they're like, "I'll just go get a scraper."
Yeah.
Just scraper up.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because again, these are costs that are either going to fall on the buyer or the seller,
Right.
and it's not cheap.
Right.
It's not cheap.
Then why would people even be buying these homes? You don't necessarily have to take out all the
No, you
asbestos,
don't.
You
right?
don't.
You
So
don't.
you could go through, say, hey, you've got some stuff here. Well, as long as we're not taking a hammer and busting up the tile.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
okay,
exactly,
right?
and sometimes basically, if it's not completely torn, and just tattered, you can use something called encapsulant that would absolutely adhere. It's kind of an adhesive that would bond that together.
Oh, really?
And so you can, yes.
And if I'll use an example of a ceiling tile in a basement. They're up there in place, they're intact, they last literally forever. I mean, unless they are damaged, water damage or something like that, it is really good material. It's really good material, and it wears well. Asbestos in the floors, the asbestos tiles on the floors.
Right. So like in a 1.5 story house in South Minneapolis, a lot of times you'll see those asbestos tiles upstairs in that half story.
Yeah.
too, and
Yep.
people just go over them. You'll put carpet
carpet
down or
over 'em.
something, and
Carpet or wainscoting or
Sure.
something. Yep.
But aren't you like tacking a tack strip for carpet and then you're
those are
busting?
glued down generally.
glued?
But
Yeah, or tack, but it's covered then. The point is it's covered. Even your asbestos-wrapped heating ducts, you can just paint over it. And just the fact that the paint is enough is very easy to contain.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
the whole point of it is containment, so that you don't have
The
the
fibers.
fibers, loose fibers becoming airborne. And because that's where the damage is. Carpet on the floors in some of the houses. Our house that we had at Keith grew up in South Minneapolis had asbestos tile in the basement.
I got some lung problems.
He's got a few little issue there.
asthma,
I have asthma.
mesothelioma.
Yeah, a little meso.
Not a big deal.
But other than that, he's doing good. But those tiles, and they wear like iron, because you have tiles in basements like that are 50 years old, and they look like the day that they were put in. I mean, you throw a little Johnson wax on there, and they look pretty good, and they're good-looking tiles. So, yep. So the whole point of it is to be aware of what's going on in there, and again, disclose. Have your inspector come in, know what you're buying. Are we going to go in and mitigate the whole thing? Okay, we can do that, but not at this price.
Right.
Because somehow those costs need to be absorbed, and I lived here for 35 years. I was fine with it. You could live here for 35 years and be fine with it. But if you want it changed, then we just got to figure out how it's going to get paid for. That's all.
Well, inspections are certainly part of every transaction nowadays. So if you need to have a home inspection or want a pre-inspection on a listing, give Inspecta Homes a call, 651-641-0641. More with Inspecta Homes when we return. This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com.
This is your Real Estate Chalk Talk with the Hittner Group, hittnergroup.com, Hittner Group.com, one of the oldest real estate websites in the United States of America, hittnergroup.com, 612-627-8000, that's 612-627-8000. What you got, Kelvin?
Well, I just had another question on the inspections. When you guys are going through it, one of the criticisms is that all you guys are doing is telling me, you might want to check that, you might want to check that. Like, no kidding. So what do you do when you do the inspection? And then is it just, hey, you might want to have this checked, which we know, which is why we have you. So what are you doing in the inspection? What aren't you covering in the inspection? And is it just basically like when you go to a general practitioner doctor where you go, hey, this hurts? They go, yeah, you should probably go to a specialist. And, well, now I just paid you to tell me to go somewhere else. Is that similar? How do you get?
Well,
That's
okay,
criticism
and
that we get
I
sometimes.
appreciate
So
that.
I wanna hear your
you're absolutely right. Honestly, I used to be a mortgage banker,
Yep.
right? Nobody wanted me to come in and inspect their homes when I was a mortgage banker,
Yep.
right? We're going to hire that professional, okay?
Yep.
And so our inspectors are trained. They're highly educated in the background of construction or general contracting, and they've gone through ASHI, which is the American Society of Home Inspections, okay, standards of practices. And so what they're doing is they're going in and they're doing a routine amount of checking the GFCIs. They're from the foundation all the way up to the attic, the HVAC, the plumbing, the electric, the roof, etc. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not general contractors,
Right.
So they're not there to give you a bid, okay? They are there to tell you that this 20-year-old furnace is running between 25 and 30-year lifetime. It's marginal. It might need to be repaired, right? Again, we're simply telling the homeowner what the guts, if you will, of this home are looking like. We can go out and we can tell you that, hey, there's peeling paint over there, FHA, right? They're not going to accept that. But again, what we want to do is we want to take and look at the bones of that house and let them know if there's anything structurally wrong, if there's anything with the electricity, things that might not be prone to the naked eye.
Yep.
Okay, and
Part
that's what
of
we
what's
do.
great with the home inspection process with Inspecta Homes is that consultation at the end of the home inspection.
Yep.
Though I think that all your inspectors, to kind of go off of what you're saying, where they're like, oh, specialist, this, like here, this might be an issue. They're really good about explaining what the problem is if one does come up, and then offering some sort of like, oh, here's how you could repair that. You might want to, you could do that yourself, or you could have somebody come in. They're not giving you prices and things like that, but they're really good at talking through what the issue is, I think. The individual inspectors inspect a home.
Yeah, they can be. Yep. And they have to watch out what they're actually saying as well, because we don't want to be held responsible or liable for saying something, or like, for instance, your negative grade, coming around from the building. Huge issue for water intrusion.
Very common.
Very, very common. Big thing is gutters, downspouts, or
improve the grade.
Right? And so again, we have that conversation many, many, many times. Something very easy to fix, but we're not going to say, hey, go out and get gutter helmet, or go out and get, another brand that's out there, okay? Because we're not salesmen, and we're not bound to anybody other than that customer.
So when I'm talking to clients and they're asked that question, I always tell them it gives you the opportunity to have your eyes wide open in what you're getting, right? Because, I bought a new property last year. Keith helped me. We walked through the house probably 3 or 4 times. We both think we're pretty astute people. And then I had you guys out. It's like, I didn't even notice that. Didn't even know, or hey, that outlet didn't work, or this didn't work. So you were eyes wide open, I think, is the benefit of the inspection.
Yeah.
But what has shifted for you guys since 2 years ago, where everyone skipped the inspection because the realtor's like, hey, if you want an inspection, then we'll just take another offer. We
lost one just last week, Kelvin, because we asked for an inspection, and
that's right.
And the competing offer, there was
not have an
3
inspection.
offers, and they took one with no inspection.
So have you seen a shift now since the market has changed a little bit? Are you busier? Do you feel like realtors are still using that as a tool?
I think the realtors, in all honesty, want the buyers to get inspections, and they're fighting for those inspections to be taken. Number one, it helps them not only sell the home, but it also helps them retain the customer later on down the road, right? No more buyer's remorse, okay?
Right.
But we are seeing, I am talking to, other people in the industry, and like Keith said, we're still seeing people take offers without an inspection, okay? And again, I wish them the absolute best. Hopefully their eyes are wide open. But we are seeing some, of those calls come back 6 months from now and saying, hey, we're noticing some issues here. Maybe we better get somebody out here to take a look at the property, okay? And we can always do a post-inspection, just for that homeowner later on down the road.
Right.
Buy the property. If you need to get into multiples, get it done.
Yep.
Close that loan, but give us a call afterwards. We'll come out and help you out.
When we sold our property in Woodbury, we did a home inspection as part of the listing. So when we listed the property, we had the home inspection right there for people as well. Great tool. And I don't know, do you guys do, is that automatic?
No.
That you guys do? Or
here's something that we take that from, Kelvin. 20 years ago, relocation was a huge part of the business.
Yes.
The relocation companies insisted that there was an inspection done on the property before Relo would take responsibility for that property. The reason for that was not so much as to alleviate any concerns on the buyer's side, because the buyer in 60 or 70% of the cases would have their own inspection anyhow, just because people don't trust. They want, they just don't trust anybody. Okay, I get that. But the relo company wanted to know if there was any skeletons in the closet there.
Okay.
They didn't want any surprises, so they had their pre-inspection. I think it's the same way with a homeowner. If you've been living in a house for 35 years, you live with things.
Yep.
That you don't realize you're living with just because you
Yep.
become accustomed to it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you just know that switch on the wall you don't use because it only works when the other one is down and this one, what I'm saying?
Yep.
Little
Stickiness. We had stickiness in the window, so you address it before people are going in there.
Yep.
So that when they did open the window, it slid nice.
Slides
It's like,
nice and easy.
They want this much money and they can't even open
a window.
I had I had a listing appointment this past week, and they have 2 additions on the property: crawl spaces, dirt floors, basement. Is like, you might want to just have a radon test, because it's probably going to come up in an inspection, and at least in advance. So get a radon test done, so it's not a surprise during the transaction. just get one done now. So
And they have multiple crawl spaces.
multiple crawl spaces with additions, dirt floors. More than likely.
Are they vented?
No.
Yeah, they would want. I mean, I would suggest getting a radon test.
Yeah. So, or alternatively, you can wait, and then maybe there's 3 offers on the property, and one of them doesn't want to have a home inspection, and then that's on that buyer on having a radon test then later, as they now live in the house. You've lived here for 15 years and haven't had a radon inspection.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, they do
it's
have
up
lung
to you.
cancer.
They do have lung cancer.
That's
But
fine.
There's on top
other-
of that, but
Yeah.
mesothelioma.
Next question. Well and septic. What do you guys do around that other than, because you don't do the well, you don't do the inspection on the well and septic. So what do you do?
We do the sewer scopes. And
Okay.
Yep. And so what we'll do is we'll find that line in the house,
Okay.
and we'll run about 150-foot cable down there. And of course, we work with some of our partners that are actually the professional in sewer scoping. Okay. As far as septics go, we're going to check water quality as far as the water goes, but as far as that septic goes, we want to just make sure that that it's compliant.
Okay.
But we're not necessarily going to go in and just test that septic either.
And you got to be careful because different counties have different point of
They
sale
do.
rules.
Yep.
And they may not require a point of sale inspection on that. There is no universal rule.
Right.
Okay.
County by county. It's county by county on how that goes through.
The state of Minnesota does require pumping the system though now.
To inspect it.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
that, and I do know like your government financing requires well and septic certs. And so I mean,
Compliance,
Yep.
If you're going to, speaking of sewer, sewer scoping, obviously the cast iron piping that you're talking about and the clay piping in some of these older communities, whose responsibility is it? Maybe you don't know the answer to this. If you've got a sewer pipe going out from your house to the connection in the street, whose responsibility is that? Is that the city or is that the homeowners?
Well, it really depends upon where that pipe broke. Obviously, we know that there's a boulevard, okay, and so that's going to be case by case, Keith. And I'm gonna tread very lightly on that particular question because it could be a responsibility of both or one or the other. It really depends on where that crack or where it broke.
Yeah, having the service there is important. Important arm of your business, especially in older communities like Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Richfield. So important to get an inspection. If you need to have a home inspection, pre-inspection, call Inspect a Home 651-641-0641. InspectAHomes.com. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
This is Real Estate Chalk Talk. Give us a call, 612-627-8000. Log on to our website, hittnergroup.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around for the fourth segment of the program, the money segment of the program. Calvin Kamick, ladies and gentlemen, the mortgage guru. 651-231-2500 is the number to call for the great rates and the low mortgage costs.
You bet. How are you?
Super duper.
Give me a quick real estate update for our segment.
Quick update. Inventory is increasing. Over 7,000 homes on the market, up about 2% from last week. Sales are kind of ebbing a little bit. I think some of that is seasonal, though. I mean, it's still August. We're coming into, state fair time of the year and all that stuff. There's a natural slowdown here, and we're seeing it reflected in the numbers. About 870 homes or so, 880 sold this week in the 7-county metropolitan area, down from a little over 1,000 at the peak of the market in the spring. I think it's pretty typical, pretty normal.
Good.
Ebb and flow.
Are you excited about the state fair? Are you going? What day are you
so
going? What concerts are you going to?
So excited
what's
about
going
the state
on?
fair. No, I'm not. I won't be.
You won't
attending.
go?
Won't be attending.
Didn't you think though back in the day? So we've been doing this show for 17, 18 years, right? And we used to go to the state fair. My daughter still talks about the fact that they would always go, right? Because we would go on Sundays. We had media passes, kind of a big deal. I don't want to say we're a big deal, but kind of a big deal. Hold up the media pass, go right in, park, and then they'd go the thing. We'd do our show, typically a 2-hour show, have the cigar guys coming on. Well, I mean, I really, really enjoyed
doing that.
doing the state fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering why we stopped. That's why I want to talk about for Foreman.
Because the station stopped because they have to have the space. They did some remodeling at the state fair. Remodeled one of the streets coming in. Did some changes there. We lost our space
Moved right down next to Home Depot.
Moved down where they're banging away
where
on
the
a
little
hammer.
kid's like,
yeah.
hey, welcome to the Real Estate Chalk Talk.
Yeah, that's
like,
exactly right. So it just turned out not to be that great.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah. It was fun. So, do you go State Fair, Keith? Will you?
I probably will this year. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'll go.
Okay.
Political year too, so
Yeah,
there'll be a lot of the booths out there.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be interesting.
People thumping and stumping.
I could go in free to Joy Collaborative because they have a booth down there and they're looking for volunteers to go in.
Because you need to save. I mean, you're trying to save a buck. You just gotta,
Yeah, exactly.
You should.
I mean, it was free.
Yeah, I'm on fixed income, So it's just trying to save a couple of dollars.
Save a
going
couple
in.
dollars.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you how to save a couple dollars.
Here we go.
Refinance your mortgage. Right?
Not
Rates
me.
are down. Rates are down. You could bump your rate up a little bit. Might be a good time to do that.
Looking for another little tax write-off, maybe.
No,
yeah,
I don't need
yeah,
those.
increase your tax rate.
Yeah, increase my tax write-off.
So here's a couple of the mortgage headlines. Uncommonly flat CPI reaction. Next headline: mortgage rates dip back below 6.5. It's good. CPI is trying its best to thread the needle. So a lot of PPI drives recent rally. CPI packs a bigger punch. All these things are coming in. They're trying to slow down inflation and do everything they can right now because it is a political year. But I want to talk about inflation just for a minute because I feel like people aren't getting it.
Mm-hmm.
So food prices, let's just talk about going to the grocery store. Food prices are up 20%
Right.
from when the previous administration was. And this isn't a
And
political
that's kind
conversation.
And that's at a global thing. If you take down the more frequently purchased items, it's more than that.
Yeah, but let's use 20%.
Okay.
So now they're talking about inflation has slowed.
Right.
I need everybody to understand when inflation went up 20%, that means something that cost $1 now costs $1.20.
Right.
We're all on the same page?
Mm-hmm.
When it says inflation slowed, it doesn't mean that it went down from $1.20 down to $1 again. It means like it didn't go up from $1.20 to $1.22 yet, but close.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going back to prices. So it's the fix is kind of in that they're talking about this inflation is under control finally. Ooh, we're good. No.
Yeah, but
no.
we're at
the prices are up
3 steps up though.
Percent.
Right.
So
and
everything's more expensive and no one's getting it. And then there's all this BS that's everywhere saying that inflation is better, it's going down, it's not growing as rapidly. Well, no kidding, right?
And that's why we have an inverted yield curve where short-term rates are higher than long-term rates because the long-term forecast for our economy is not good. And that's part of the problem.
Right.
So we are at the greatest risk, according to the economist Ruben Gonzalez.
Oh, Ruby. We call him Ruby.
Ruby.
I don't know.
We're at the greatest risk of a major recession since 1980. I mean, because it's bad in terms of the expectations of the economy coming on.
Well, what's frustrating is nobody wants to peel the onion back and really look at this stuff because because it's always political, which is just
it's not good. It's not a good headline.
No. And it's not a good headline for either, right?
Right.
You can blame some of it back on the Trump administration. You can blame a lot back on the Biden. But no one's willing to peel it back and just say, hey, folks, here's where
What's the
we're
problem?
at.
Yeah.
Other than, quite honestly, a Bobby Kennedy or somebody different that doesn't care, that just wants to peel the thing back and go, hey, everybody, look.
We need to make some changes here on how we do things.
Yeah. So, well, I'm not going to go down that road. So, anyway, rates are down. Refinance applications are up like 35, 40%. So, we're starting to see some of that. We're yesterday.
Rates in the 6s.
Rates are in the 6s, mid 6s, some lower 6s, right? So really, actually pretty good. The market this morning, I was just looking, the market opened up really nicely, and that's because I locked my entire pipeline yesterday, which always happens, right? You know that, Ben. Like, hey, it looks like, we're closed. Let's just lock everything up. Everybody that we said, hey, rates are going to be like 6.625. Now we're calling back like, hey, we're at 6.5, 6.375. Like, let's just lock it, take our win, and we'll be good. And then this morning, open up that, like, oh shoot, but but we can float them down if we need to, blah, 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 that fun stuff. So refinances are up. So what we're losing on the purchase side, but we're busier than heck. We had a great month last month. We have a really good month this month, and applications this month are up. And in our office, we have about 19% of our apps, just about 20% of the apps are refinances right now. So that has shifted a little bit for us as well.
Give me an example, Calvin. So Sheila flew out to Salt Lake City to the convention, and they told, at the counter, if she gets an American Express a Delta card,
Yep.
then it's free. They don't charge her for bags.
Yep.
Okay. So she's like, oh, okay. So the card comes in the mail. And I look at this card and I said, did you order a credit card? Why do we have a second American Express card here? Oh yeah, well it was free baggage if I took this card. Okay, did you read the other things? That the
Like the
annual
annual
renewal fee is $200 and the interest rate on that card is 30%.
Nice.
30%.
Bargain.
3
Yeah,
with a 3.
30%.
Not seen that yet.
It's like, wow. Well, we're not going to be. Well, we pay it all off, but the thing of it is they get you with that renewal fee.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it wasn't free bags, honey.
That's an American Express thing.
That's an American
Right.
Express thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, mortgages are good. We're not in the way of anything anymore, right? For a while we were in the way, and then you guys are complaining. You always find something.
So what are rates
somebody
then?
else to
And
blame.
what are rates then? Are they back
They're
down in the
6.5.
4s?
No, 6.5.
6.5? You call that good?
I still call that great.
Oh man.
That's great. It's better
So
than
who are you
7.5.
refinancing?
We're refinancing.
If you have
people,
a rate of like what?
anything over 7.5. Right now, a lot of FHA.
And they're sucking in that credit card debt with that.
Yep.
I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
So their
We're doing
loan
that.
amounts are going up,
Absolutely.
but the savings from the difference
it's-
between
it's
6.5 and
Well,
30.
Ben will appreciate this. We talked about it on the last show, and I just want to reemphasize. There's all these like up loan, payday loan, all these loans.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And we had a client that took out 4 of these loans, Ben. $400, $400. And he had to pay back $400 plus $1,500 in interest for a total of $1,900 payback over 22 months. And on the sheet, Ben will know that shows the APR 879% interest.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, that's usury rate, right? So I'm going down the road you would go down, like, hey, that's illegal. You can't do that. You peel back. It's a Indian tribe that isn't regulated.
Oh.
That is who owns that. I'm just like, wow.
And they're borrowing the money times 4.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just crazy, but yet people are doing it. And I'm just like, man, there's such a there's a conversation we have to have with people about just making smarter decisions regarding their money and their mortgage. And that's kind of where we come into play, is
Right.
to have that conversation, because we are taking that. I mean, the one I was doing one last night. This person wants to buy an $800,000 fourplex in Eagan. It's on the market, $795 right off Westcott. And it's FHA because the credit's low. Well, then there's a rule that says you have to have the rents of those 4 units have to cover 100% of your mortgage payment. Well, of course, 3 of the units are rented out at like $1,300, $1,400, coin-operated laundry, air conditioner in the window. So, he's like, I can get $2,000 a piece. It's $8,000 of income. Like, he has all this math in his head. I'm like, none of that's real.
Right.
Right.
And so it's just having these conversations with people. It's actually really super fun. But it's an important conversation people need to have. So
And I think that's what we got to just slow things down.
Yep.
So that we can have those conversations.
right.
Sit down, eyeball to eyeball, and talk through it.
Yep. Exactly. So if you want to have a conversation, give me a call. 651-231-2500 is the hotline.
Thanks, Calvin. That's it for this week. Real Estate Chalk Talk, HittnerGroup.com. See you next week.